What's happening, guys? This is like 38th retake of Sunday's scan for the 9th of November. I'm trying to get it in a one take for Cam so that he doesn't have to, edit it 48 times and get it out in a timely manner, but we'll see how it goes. This particular episode is sponsored by these guys. Hopefully they take care of it so that, I can go ahead and just one take it. But I had a wedding this weekend, rehearsal dinner on Friday. Wedding on Saturday, you know how it goes. Late night, loud voices, loud music, and then you can't talk the next day. So that's where I'm at, and here I am. I have to be on camera and try to get this thing done in one take. So we'll see how it goes. There's a good chance that I fall asleep halfway through, but again, let's see. APVO, obviously, I know it's going to be a big talking point. I did a video on it for you guys yesterday. Hopefully you saw it. Anybody that's been following or anybody that's been in the room over the last week knows exactly what I said. Spelled out the trade, also warned multiple times that I thought it was going to be the next KRTX and NXTC, the potential of it going 50 to 80. Also tweeted it, even if you're not in the room, you knew. And also the potential of ALTM alongside it. I felt like one of the two was the writing was on the wall. Trading is all about, putting yourself back to a situation that you've seen before. I saw the same writing on the wall that I saw those days. NXTC, I actually caught the upside of back then, if you guys can remember that far. I got long and nailed that one. KRTX, I had lost on. And so, I've been on both sides of the trades. I understand. And when you see it again, you gotta remember it. And you got to not forget it. And so that's why I have a position on both. Truthfully, I probably would have sold out at 30, 35, 40, who knows. But because I was at the rehearsal dinner, truthfully, I thought somebody died. I had a bunch of missed calls. Probably 7 people called me. I had a bunch of texts. I had a bunch of DMs. Instagram, everybody Nate. And I'm like, what is going on? We're in the middle of best man kind of speeches, things like that. So, I had to, excuse myself, go to the bathroom, just figure out what was going on. And then I realized, stock was 40, 50, 70, 80. And so yes, I was long. It was nice. It is nice. Still am long. So we'll see what happens with that. ALTM, I also have a position, but we'll get into that in a moment. Pot stocks, just a reminder, earnings report, same thing that I had mentioned on Friday. They're coming on Monday morning. So anybody that has a position overnight, flip a coin. Who knows what's going to happen? And one thought process was that it'll be like GameStop, GME, which I'll get into as well during the Sunday scan portion of this, not necessarily this pre-scan talk. One big thing I want to talk about was be aware of the melt-ups. And there's a lot of melt-ups lately. Tilray, ACB, SNDL went nuts. A lot of these stocks are literally running out of shares. There's just so much demand, so much volume, and not necessarily that there won't be sellers, but they run out of sellers or supply for a short period of time, for a moment. And that's when you could really wreck your account. If you size in too much, if you take too much risk, it starts to open up and it gaps up, in the chart. It basically goes from trending, 10, 20, 30 cents at a time to $50, $1.52. And if you're outsized, if you're out positioned, that's it. You're either taking a nice loss, you're blowing up, or, if you're positioned correctly, you let it do its thing and then you scale on the backside. That's always my goal. And the reason that I bring that up, I actually said it. I said it pre-market Friday because sometimes I see comments in the room, and traders that are learning have a tendency, no offense, to selectively read. Selectively take and see what they want versus reality. So they may see me, for example, think or say, shorting a dabble, starter, whatever, feeler entry. And for me, that's like the difference, the conversation between paper trading and, real trading, right? You're either emotionless or you have emotions. So for me, I need to put on a little feeler. It may not be a big size, but it gets me in the game. It gets me focused. And then I start to get a feel for what the key levels are. And that's why I was able to give the 1120 and 1080 levels for the ACB trade that worked out extremely well. Was I early? Yes. Was I sized? No. Did I size in? Yes. But I was able to, and I did size because of the information that I gathered from being in there a little bit early. That's not for everybody, especially if you're new. And most importantly, it's not good for traders if you're reading that dabble as, oh, it's a short entry, and that's your one position. So just like I said in the room, if you're a one entry trader, avoid. Wait for those levels to kind of at least identify themselves so that you have some type of edge. If you are trying to find the top, step in front of these things, it's not going to work. You will blow up. You'll run into issues. It's not going to be good. So keep that into consideration. ACB was a perfect example. Tilray, SNDL. It's just that small situation where there becomes a time where there's just so much demand, not enough supply, but there's also been supply from shorts. It hits a key level, everybody panics. It's got that little air gap, comes back down. But it has a tendency to hang around just a little bit too long. And that little too long is when you end up taking a loss when you would have been right all along. But you wouldn't have been in this situation had you not tried to find the front side or fight it. So be aware of that. I think I'm going to cut this stuff a little bit short just because of the situation for me and my voice this week. But I do want to go over a couple looking left examples that I promised. Once again, we are in a supply and demand market. So we're in a demand and two types of supply market, actually, right? So you've got your normal demand where, you've just got all these traders and you've got your investors, you've got your people that like the story, you've got your traders, you've got your momentum traders. That all could be demand, but then you've got your supply. And there's two different types of supply. One is from, just the paper, people selling paper or, people that are long trying to get out selling. And then you also have supply from shorts, right? So what happens is when there's too much demand and there's not, they're done with the supply, such as paper, such as sellers, and there's still supply from shorts, but the demand is too heavy, that's when you start to get that melt up situation that we've seen many times recently. So I want you guys to be cautious of that. The first thing that you should note is anytime there's, it's tracking for 100 million shares, you really should be hands off on the front side of the move. Otherwise, at some point, one of them will catch up. It'll be after a couple good trades. You'll be all confident. You'll be all excited. And all of a sudden, you blew up. So be cautious of that. And you know what? Let's get right into Sunday scan right after I do a couple of these looking left situations. So the looking left situations that I wanted to talk about was SCKT. This has been a popular one. We actually talked about it on one of the recent examples, but most importantly, it happened again. And not only do you look at the daily resistance, but any day that it gaps up, you don't want to step in front of a name that is tracking to have more volume than that prior day, right? So this particular day had way more volume than this prior day. That should be an alarm. That should be an alert. Like, hey, be cautious. Don't fight it. Don't step in front. But be aware. And so a lot of times people start to get, short on the front side of the move. And when it starts to test that key level, instead of either adding, being able to see it, you're emotionally involved and you're looking for the cover. you end up covering, and it ends up being, the top. So in a situation like this, and we talked about it in depth in the room, but in a situation like this, it's very important to look left on that daily. You saw the 415 level or so. And if you were fighting it, you're going to cover in a panic. And then it comes in perfectly, right? Once again, next day it runs. Look left. Just draw a line across. You can see that it had an issue with the same area that it had before. That's not to say that it can't keep on going, but the point here is to not take a position, not fight a position that you will be emotionally involved or attached at that key level that it needs to test. So, if you go back and look, yeah, we're over this prior high, and rightly so because we have more volume, but you didn't even see it on this chart, this daily, but you had the action pre-market, and you knew that, and you got that information because you looked left. So you don't even see this on the daily chart, but you have that opportunity pre-market where we're not tracking for 130 million shares on the day, and we are tracking for potential, there's more supply than there is demand. Anytime that you look left and the volume is, say it's like 20 million, 30 million, but it's already trading 10 million, 15 million, you want to be hands off because there's a good chance you could be trading 50 or 100 million shares on the day. So you always want to look at the volume. You always want to make sure that you're not stepping in front of something that is tracking to have more volume than the prior biggest day. If it is, you're going to get ran over potentially, and there's ways to be safe about that. Another example with NEO recently has been crazy, obviously. But one that we've been talking about it in the room, key levels and sort of what areas to look for. But, you can obviously see these levels from, Friday and Thursday. But most importantly, the key levels that I was posting in the room and the day that, we went on a crazy squeeze, we had a big pullback into the close, and then after hours, there was a huge bidder. There was a bidder that came in, 150,000 shares, 200,000 shares, just kept on refreshing, buying like millions of shares. And so that next morning, we gapped up, but we faded off. And where did it come? It came right back to that prior support. So knowing that I saw those bids, knowing that I saw some big buyer, that's a great understanding or assumption. You should assume that it's going to hold that level. And if it does, great. You're looking good on your covers. If it doesn't, you can always re-add. So that was a great example and a great discussion that we had in the Traders Lounge at Investors Underground, where I put out this exact chart and I said, guys, look left. Look at where the buyer was, last night after hours. That was a big player. And there's a good chance that if this player wants this thing higher, they're not going to let it crack back under that level. And that's exactly what happened. And as you can see, they squeezed everybody out. So those are the types of things I look for. You can do the same thing looking left, where if you're looking for a top, you can generally assume that it would have trouble with this area. However, if it starts to set up and it breaks through that level, you don't want to fight it. So that's just two key recent examples. I'm always looking for situations like that. ACB, same thing we talked about. It has room to run, but once it gets through and over this, prior top from this highest volume day, expect the unexpected. There's always going to be situations like this. We had MDGS was a really good example, and I think I had used this example in the video that I did. But looking left at, and you can see that typically it closes under 330s, but also where was the top? Right at 4. So again, that doesn't mean that's it, short at 4, but it means don't be the guy that's shorting at 330, 340, 350, 380, and then you panic cover at 4. Because you more than likely will cover into the top if it's tracking for less volume. In this particular case, this becomes the new volume day because the volume was so much higher than the rest. So anyway, let's get right into scan, and I'm just trying to get this out at a good hour on my 100th take, and then we'll have pre-market broadcast just like always in the morning, 8:50 a.m., and we'll go from there. So ACB, like I said, look, you got to have two plans. Who knows if this is gonna gap up on earnings or gap down on earnings. We've got CGC, and I don't remember if it was Tilray or another one, but they're all reporting, so that's a big deal. And the comparison that I made was to GME. So GME, if you guys remember, had a nice big breakout. So if you kind of compare it to what the pot stocks are doing right now, we've got a great breakout, right? GME, big move, consolidate, starts to break out, squeezes, and then bam, it's earnings report day. What happens? Gap down. Looks like trash. Now for me, I'm like, you know what? Screw it. It's off radar. Then what happens? Oh, we'll come back. Next day, up, 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 and away. Right? So that would be ideal for me just because the only pot stock that I got caught was SNDL, which it was a great trade, but I had plans to trade ACB. I wanted to get long, and my goal was to buy dips. And so as you can see, it had a big gap up, and then it just faded all pre-market, and the low was actually the open. So as you can see, the only other entry would have been right over here, which this is a nice setup under VWAP. VWAP reclaims. I mean, that is a super clean setup. That is exactly what I look for every single day. People ask me, what do you mean by confirmation? Ramps up, consolidates, retakes VWAP, test VWAP, test VWAP, test VWAP, go. Now you can risk off VWAP and let that trade work. I didn't take the trade. It's clean. It would have been nice. That was my plan. I missed it. So personally for me, I would love a GameStop situation where, everybody's super, super long. Biden is good for pot stocks. Everybody's excited about it. Everybody's long, no brainer. And then all of a sudden, maybe they're outsized, they're out leveraged, and that's a real possibility. Market makers aren't dumb. So, if they know that people might be over leveraged, they can always walk it down, work people out, create a trap, and then go. And that's exactly what happened here. So that's what I'd love to have happen on ACB and CGC and all these other ones, selfishly, because they ran without me. But I think I would say the same thing regardless, because even if I had position the last couple of days, I would have been out Friday, because there's just no edge, especially with the election stuff and earnings report. There's going to be probably a 10 or 20% move in any direction. So I don't want part of that. So we'll see what happens, but I would be prepared for a GameStop type situation. And if not, higher the better. And hopefully we just have another opportunity like ACB on Friday, which, this is sort of that melt up situation where the volume is just insane. I mean, we traded 461 million shares. That's an incredible amount of shares. And we had that moment in time where, it just melted up. And just like I said, yeah, there is a very good chance that it's going to flush right back. And it did, came right back to VWAP. But you don't know that. And you don't know if it's going to go 13 or 14 or circuit halt. And that is why they are good at what they do, because as soon as that opens up, I mean, they're blowing everybody out. And as soon as they're, everybody's exhausted, comes right back in. So, you have to be cautious. Tilray did the same thing. But just make sure that you're staying super, super cautious of the potential of melt-up situations. So anyway, I'm not making a call anyway on ACB and the rest. We have to see what happens on earnings report, but I would be hopeful of a situation like GME. If not, higher the better. I think we'll have great opportunities both ways. Obviously with ACB, for example, with 461 million shares, I mean, we're going to have opportunities for weeks. And it very easily could be a situation where sector rotation, money comes out of one spot and into these, and it starts to build and build and build. Look at solars. If you don't think, and I'm not all bulled up on these, but there is a case for them to go. But if you look at solars, look how many doubled, then doubled again, and doubled again. So keep that in mind. And in this day and age, they create such high volume. People can take stakes, and acquire positions at very cheap at the expense of shorts. They're not really buying stock off sellers. They're buying stock off shorts. And then you end up having that secondary move. APVO, insanity. And like I said, I probably would have sold, into the first push or something had I not been at the rehearsal dinner. So anyway, great opportunity. I'm not sold on it being done, but I'm also, you got to be cautious. The float is tiny. Lower the better. And KBIO, I would suggest to go back and check out the stock that day. It actually faded for, it gapped up in the morning. Let's say it opens at 60 and it fades to 40, and then it went nuts. So keep that in mind. People might be looking to short it, but it's going to be an expensive short, I'm sure. ALTM, you can see it started to skip up a little bit after hours, but a situation like this, personally, I think that they are connected a little bit at the hip because they're both low float. They both had news the same day. They both kind of made, or not the same day, but around the same time. And, it's a situation, maybe it opens at, 35, 38, and everybody's like, oh boy, we've got the next APVO. And then it rips up to 45, and then that's it. Everybody is already on the APVO train, thinks that it's going to be the next one, and then, it just does nothing. And so I would be cautious of that. I have a position long, like I said, and if it does nothing, then, that's fine. I'm gonna stick with my risk and go from there. But I could see a situation of, sympathy trades where people are excited about the next one. They go for it. They don't ask any questions. And then, once it hits a wall, it just fades off from there. So we'll see what happens with that. ONCT, you never know what this could be about. I don't think that there was any filings after hours or anything like there was on APVO. Obviously, if you don't know APVO, there was a stake taken. But right now, this thing, another liquidity trap of sorts. This thing's already ripping. It's kind of like a trading vehicle at this point. Ripped up to 8 after hours. You never know what the situation it was here, though, right? Maybe people were short this and APVO. They got blown out of APVO. They got blown out of this. We don't know. So we have to see what happens come Monday morning. Does this thing stay, up here, or does it start to fade off? But I think we'll have a great trade. I can't make a call right now any which way. I think the key levels are going to be about 580s and, 7 for me, out of this range. But reactive trade potential. And again, it's just another one of those situations where you have almost 100 million shares, consolidates, it holds trend, and then it goes. We had the same thing on this SUP idea, which was a long idea as well over the last couple of days. And we have the wicks that we talk about, which I'll get into in a minute because it's on continuation scan. So other than that, under the failed follow-through momentum section, we've got MOGO. This was fantastic. I got short in the 260s in the room on Friday. I said I liked all pushes as long as 260s stayed relatively heavy and didn't start to base. And, it just pretty much came apart. Because I was leaving for the wedding, I got rid of the trade over here. It did continue to go, further down. But what I'd be looking for on Monday is basically a retest of that prior level. So, not only do you have this prior resistance area and this prior top, but you also have VWAP. So in an ideal world, it goes 205, 210, and then fades back off. So that would be perfect. And then Neo is I've got kind of like a love-hate relationship with. Some crazy trades and then just some stubborn trades. overall, it's been a fantastic trader. But at this point, I think you need to wait for that next A+ setup. Very easy to get chopped around. Machines have control of it right now. And, your edge is going to be when it breaks out of this trend. So, you can just make it easy for yourself, and you can just see that it's stuck in that channel. It doesn't have to be exact, but, that's what I see without drawing lines. So anytime that there's a situation like this, I don't want to be fighting or anticipating the move because, look what happened right here. You think you nailed the trade. All of a sudden it swipes back up 40, 50, 60 cents and, that's it. So I'm going to be looking for the bigger picture trade, reactive trade, big moves. And I have it under the failed follow through section because I don't want to be trying to find the top. I want to wait until 9:45, 10 a.m., let it fade and, kind of see what happens. Let's see. Last two is NNDM, which is a little frustrating. I had a really large swing trade on this. As a lot of you guys know, it was on Sunday Scan a while back. And, we had that big gap up. They raised some money. They absorbed it. And I started to get long in size. And it was after VVPR. So I was, I had some padding to risk. And I actually was up more than VVPR, which was, I think, the best trade of the year for me so far. It's all starting to run together. I don't know. It must be November. But I had sized down some in the 6 range, 550s range. Not enough, though. And then we had the filing. And, it was, I sold more in the 410, 420 range. And then I still had some, and then they ended up raising at 3. And I was like, maybe I got to run. And so I started to bail on the rest of it, basically 320, 330s to a smaller size, just because I had, so many on the front side. I still had a decent chunk. It wasn't a loss. It was just I minimized the trade. And then we had this big move. So I think they've done a very good job at raising money in very tight hands. And I think they've been doing a very good job of trapping shorts. So this actually, I could see this going a lot further. I could see it being one of those trades that I look back and it's $7 or $10. And I'll be upset that I had so many at, the mid 2s. But if it starts to base 370, 380s, I'd love to be part of it on dips. And then again, back to SUP. We talk about these wicks all the time on Sunday Scan, right? So you've got that big volume, and then it pulls back, comes back, pulls back, comes back. And so this is signifying that there's a buyer in the tape, right? And so we want, you're essentially seeing a dip, either a weak open comes back or a dip and comes back. But every time it pulls back, a buyer steps in. And that's what you want to see. You set your alert, your price alerts for 210, and then as soon as it gets through there, if it starts to base at 210, obviously you've got a potential runner. So for me, I'd be looking for dips to potentially join this trend. I think it's going to be a great opportunity to potentially join if trend holds. If not, forget it. Right? This market is all about joining the trends of the names that are moving and let it work. And that's it, really. So got a couple other names on staying familiar. I've got about maybe a dozen. As you guys know, if you click through the description, you can check out the other watches and you can check out the scan. But I think we made it. I think we made it through one take, and hopefully you guys learned something. If not, that's okay too. We'll see you guys in the room. I would highly encourage you to check out the video that I put out this weekend, last night, and highly encourage you to especially watch the last 2 minutes, which was the piece of the 8:50 a.m. broadcast, which I do every single morning when I, verbally say my thoughts, just like, I have right now. So again, I've got my main watches tomorrow. It's going to probably be ACB and ONCT, plus another 2 off of whatever's happening in the morning. And, we'll see what happens with APVO. I mean, again, lower the better on that thing. Hopefully they trap again, and, maybe we do some circuits, have some fun. ALTM, like I said, very easily could catch that sympathy because everybody's going to want the next one. But, we'll see what happens. So, catch you guys in the room. If you have any questions whatsoever, reach out, and we'll see you tomorrow.